Right.
How about Tiger Woods?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I heard that he was in an accident.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, we're going to wait for one more minute to see if Cindy can get on, and then we'll get started and hopefully she can catch up.
And do you know Harold Way?
Yeah, I've met Harold a few times.
You knew he passed away
No, I didn't.
last night.
Sorry to hear that.
And Gord, can you speak so we can see if we can hear you?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Great, sounds good.
Hi,
And we've
Gord.
got, I don't know, where'd Michael go? Michael, do you want the Public Sector Digest folks to test their mics too? I may, and I wasn't sure who the.
I just sent May a message asking her to take her camera off, but
Okay,
she doesn't
which
mind
is fine.
going on.
I wonder if we should rename, sorry, I don't know the gentleman's name.
It's John Murray.
John Lloyd,
There you go.
okay, because we should probably rename your little square here, so.
Thank you. I noticed I came up as a May.
How do you spell your last name?
It's Murray.
Oh, okay, perfect, done. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. It's 4:02, and with the hopes that Cindy can get on as we get moving through. Okay, the first we have a motion to adopt the agenda. Moved by Nikki and seconded by Tom that the agenda for the regular council meeting held February the 23rd, 2021 be approved as. Are there any amendments, Kathy?
None.
No amendments? So as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor? I need to see hands. Okay, motion's carried. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof by any members of council on any item on tonight's agenda?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have received two. Do you want those councillors to express what they are? Or
Yes,
do you want me to just to say?
or you could go ahead maybe.
Okay. I received one councillor and actually deputy mayor, Nikki Gowdy. She has declared conflict in regards to item number 7A, the opening of the community halls, as that is a place of employment. Also too, Councillor Elwin Burke has also declared conflict for the same issue under 7A, opening community halls, as he is a volunteer at Rifkis as well. Those are the two declarations received.
Okay, so we'll note those. Okay, next is approval of the minutes. I have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Brent that the minutes of the regular council meeting held February the 9th, 2021 be approved as presented. Any questions or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, mayor's remarks, just a few short remarks. COVID-wise, we're still doing well. Dr. Moore was on the call on Monday, and there are a few cases that were new due to students coming back from hotspots after reading week. But I do see that today the Ontario numbers are down below 1,000. So we're still doing well, and thankfully everybody's paying attention. There's Cindy, good.
Cindy was at the doctor's.
Okay. Cindy, let me just go back. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest in general nature thereof of any item on tonight's agenda for you?
No.
Okay, all right. The other part of the mayor's remarks that I just want to bring you up to date on is I am working with the family health team and the health unit to set up our vaccination center here. And I have to commend the staff of the township, Jamie with the fire hall, Kathy, Tyson, Everybody has been great on getting things together. It looks like it's going to be at the fire hall, and the family health team will set it up, and there will be a rotation coming in from the Napanee Hospital once a week to help assist in vaccinating people. So that's still in the works. We're still aiming for the first part of April to start with the 80 plus and onwards from there. So keep our fingers crossed that those vaccines just keep arriving. So far, it sounds like they're getting caught up, which is good.
And I had also,
Okay.
Madam Mayor, because
Go ahead.
I didn't receive it in time to put it in the council package. I did receive an update regarding the vaccination rollout that we always receive from General Hillier. So I'll provide that to council as well.
Okay, good. Deputy Mayor Gowdy, do you have anything to add? No, okay.
Yes.
All right. If there's no questions or comments, does anyone else have anything to add? Bill?
Yes, I'm just wondering, through Madam Mayor, in your report about the vaccination, do we have any information as to whether or not the COVID vaccination will have any effect, negative or positive, to those people who have had the flu shot?
I haven't heard anything about that being an issue, and there was massive flu vaccinations and other people are still getting the shot. So no, I haven't heard of that, but Dr. Bell is saying that people have to wait for 15 minutes after the shot to be sure that there are no bad reactions.
Okay, that's
So
good.
People will be monitored closely before they leave the vaccination site.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next, we have no deferred items. So we're moving right into staff reports. And the first one is a motion on development services, opening community halls. So Elwood and Nikki, if you would just shut off your video. That way it's like you're not in the room.
Yeah, they have both have taken off their camera.
Okay, all right. So the motion is moved by Sherry and seconded by Bill. Whereas the Manager of Development Services, CBO, presented a report to Council at the December 8th, 2020 meeting, looking for direction on when to open the halls. And whereas Council decided to wait until public health restrictions relax and we go back to green level. And whereas our region has been moved to the green prevent classification of the provincial framework, now, therefore, it be it resolved that Council approve the recommendation of the Manager of Development Services and open the community halls as of March 1st, 2021 to programs run by rural Frontenac Community Services and other clients that submit a safety plan. And further, that the safety plans be submitted to the Manager of Development Services for approval. Any questions or comments? Bill and then Tom.
Yes, through Madam Mayor to Andy. Number one, I wanted to ask the question. I know North Frontenac has had their halls open for some time, and I'm wondering if there were any issues that came to the forefront up there. And the second part, if the township contractors are going to clean the hall between each of the uses, will that have an impact on our budget in regard to operation of the halls? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm not aware of any issues that North Frontenac has had, and our cleaning contractors, as part of their contract, is to clean the halls after every use anyways, so there should be no additional cost.
And it's not usual that we would have two rentals in the same day. Go ahead, Bill.
Well, that's basically what my comment is going to be. I suspect that that if the halls are opened up and you have perhaps 3 renters in the same day, one morning, afternoon, and evening, are we anticipating that the contractors are going to clean after each of those uses? Thank you.
Andy, would we be controlling that?
That's something that we would have to address if that comes up. I believe in the past it was more or less once a day. I think Arden is the only one that really gets in the past that was rented more than once in one day.
Okay, Tom, you had a question.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, my question was along the same lines as Bill's with regards to the additional cost. But in addition to what Bill was saying, obviously they're going to have to use different sterilization materials to sterilize the halls, which is not probably part of the contract. Or do we supply all the materials for the cleaners?
We do supply all the cleaning supplies, and
so I guess there will be an additional cost there.
We do have a stock of special cleaner that's specifically for the coronavirus. I'm not sure, but I think there was some funding provided to give us relief for COVID-related items, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I support opening the halls as long as they follow proper protocols and we do the proper things. So I support it.
Yep, so do I.
Okay,
Right.
Cindy, and then Brent.
I was just wondering, have hand sanitized stations been installed at the halls, at the community centers? So people can sanitize their hands? Are they there now?
I believe they're already installed at the entrances. If not, I know we've purchased them already, and we have 5-gallon pails of sanitizer to fill them.
Okay, thank you.
Brent?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Andy, going forward, are we looking at possibly purchasing something like an electrostatic cleaner? I know that there are services that operate where there's an electrostatic system which sprays disinfectant out, and it's these things are commonly used. Would we be looking at that type of system down the road, specifically one that would address corona?
We have looked into them. They're actually included in a grant application that I applied for in late November. It's still under review, but I did have 4 of those electrostatic cleaning machines included in that grant if we're successful.
Also too,
They are fairly expensive, are they not?
Yes.
What do they cost, Andy?
I believe they're somewhere between $3,500 and $4,000 each.
Also too, Madam Mayor, I'll mention that actually we just ordered the Clorox 360 machines, the same as North Frontenac and South Frontenac has, so that we can also spray the offices, and they're a lot quicker, as well as trucks. Jamie has already put the order in, and it's coming out of some of the money, that money, it's costing us around $17,000. And Jamie's here on the line, so he could confirm that in regards to the prices. And that money, with the cost for those, are going to come out of the other $50,000 money that the province gave us in regards to COVID. So we have already ordered some, so that it'll be a lot quicker to do our offices as well, instead of, and I think it's something what Councillor Cameron is talking about as well. And I know North Frontenac uses them, South Frontenac as well. So Jamie can confirm on regards to those costs. Also too, just to let you know that Andy did mention anyway, but I will also say, for instance, the Rural Frontenac Community Services, they have their own safety plans, their own standards of cleaning, and their own standards of how they have to operate in the whole COVID about cleaning all the equipment. So they have already presented those, their guidelines to us, and certainly to Andy, and he has those.
And that's the big thing. Any user has to have a safety plan that we're going to look at and let them know whether or not it's acceptable before the rental happens.
Correct.
So I think we're
That's
making,
correct.
we're taking good precautions, and it's not, we're not going to just open it up the way it used to be.
No, and Jamie, you can just
Okay,
confirm.
good discussion.
Jamie, can you just confirm for council in regards to how many we ordered on the Clorox 360 machines?
Yeah, we'll do through you, Madam Mayor, to all of council. We ordered, like Kathy said, the Clorox 360. It's the large unit that will be available for the township office, and it is portable enough that we can put it and take it up and do the hall after a event at the hall. We also ordered the smaller handheld units, one for each one of the township public works garages, as well as one for each one of the fire halls, so that our workers and our firefighters have it to do the vehicles and the building as well, after fires and after calls and training nights. So like Kathy said, the total cost for everything was around 17,000. And that was covered through money that Michael confirmed was through money that we received for COVID related expenses.
Okay, good. Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Okay. I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Cindy. Whereas RFQ number FA 2021-01 was released on January 27th, 2021 and closed on February the 12th, 2021 for the collection of garbage and recycling for the facilities within the municipality as prescribed in the document. And whereas 2 quotations were received by the deadline of February the 12th, 2021 at 1 p.m. And whereas JJ Landscaping was the lowest of the quotations received, and the Manager of Development Services, CBO, has reviewed the quotations and recommends that they be accepted as the successful bidder. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the Manager of Development Services, CBO, and award the 3-year contract for collection of garbage and recycling for the facilities within the municipality to JJ Landscaping in the amount of $88,050, excluding HST. And further, that the Manager of Development Services, CBO, be authorized to issue a purchase order for the work. Discussion. That's Tom, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Andy, with regards to this new contract, why the big increase from the previous 3-year contract, which was, let me get this here right now, which was 58,000, and also, what are they doing? What are these guys doing differently? Because this new contract is for 88,000, and then also the other question I had is the other contract, the one that submitted a quote was Environmental 360, and they're quoting 145. So to me, there's quite a difference here between the 88,000 and the 145. So what are they doing less than environmental? And also, why is it more than the previous contract?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we had 7 bid takers, document takers. We only received the 2 bids. I think the big difference between J&J and Environmental 360 is Environmental 360 normally has a truck that just pulls in and loads the bin into their truck, where in this case, they'd have to get out and pull the bags out of the bins that we supply. It is a lot more than the previous contractor was charging. We did reach out to him to try to get him to submit a bid on this contract, but he declined to meet with us.
Okay.
Okay. Brent, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think this is sort of an add-on to Tom's question because we're looking at a significant difference between what we did pay and what we would be paying now. I'm wondering if there are specific changes to the RFP as opposed to the one that we ran 3 years ago. Would there be a change in the duties and the change in the scope that might explain why there's such a wide discrepancy between the previous contract and this one?
Basically, there was no change in the contract. I think the big difference being that J&J Landscaping, I think he's from the Sydenham area, where B Sanitation is more local. So he could, I think that's what the big difference in price is. But his bid was received late and I didn't open it, so I don't know what his price was.
So B Sanitation did put in a quote, but it was late.
That's correct. It was, it wasn't received until February 17th and it closed on the 12th, I believe.
Okay, so it was really late. It wasn't just by an hour or so. Okay,
That's correct.
Cindy?
Well, seeing how the bids are so high, is there no reason why we couldn't retender it? Because I know with my workplace, if it's too high and we feel that it's not where it should be, we retender to see if somebody else wants to come forward. So that might be an option to get a lower price.
Okay. Are both of these that have tendered, is this waste going out of the municipality or is it going to our waste sites?
It's going to our waste sites.
So JJ picks it up and dumps it in our site.
That's correct.
Does 360 do that as well?
That's what they were bidding on.
Okay.
See, at that price, they should be taking it away. Really, right?
That's a huge increase. What do we want to do? Kathy, legally, what, now these people have showed their hands on their prices.
Correct.
If we re-quote it, they're in a tough situation because we know their price.
That is correct, Madam Mayor. And the other thing is too, whether you're going to get any other tenders.
Yeah.
See, and that's the thing, is that these two folks, accepted, they put their proposal in and they put it in on time. So under the procurement bylaw, they followed all the procedures. So therefore, if we turn around and decide to retender, then we're going to retender. We're probably not going to get something else from them. Or if you do, it may be higher. But how fair is it to those two folks that followed all the procedures? But I mean, that's something that we would have to watch for as well.
Yes. Nikki.
At that price, it's not cheaper just to hire somebody and add them to our staff payroll to have them go around and pick up garbage?
And I mean, that is an option certainly that can be done. If you hire somebody, we'd have to have them other jobs to do besides that. I don't know whether it's something that, I don't know if Andy has talked about this in regards to whether Terry would be willing to pick up the garbage as part of his duties. Then we would have to change his job title, certainly what his duties are, but that certainly always is an option.
But you're talking more than just a staff. I believe you're talking equipment here as well. Okay, Tom, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Based on what Andy was telling me, J&J are from South Frontenac, and the fact that the previous contractor was local makes some sense to me that, yeah, he could quote a lot, he quote under the current off bid. So I think we should go along with J&J, because if you look at the distance there and what's involved, I think we we should go ahead with it. Because I would not support hiring staff, because you're into fringe benefits and all kinds of other things, and it's going to cost us more in the long run.
Bill?
That's through you, Madam Mayor. I have some concerns of not accepting the bid, because then you might be paying a lot of legal fees in which to defend your decision to do that. And I'm concerned that if we have one of our staff start to be transporting waste, I'm wondering if there's going to be a requirement of certain licensing and paperwork that has to be done to allow people to transport garbage even to our own landfill sites. So I'm in favor of moving forward with the recommendation of Andy. So.
And I think, as Councillor McDonald mentioned, that I know at one time you did have to get a license from the Ministry of Environment if you were going to be picking up garbage or any kind of recycling anything from any other households than your own. So I'm not sure what the regulations are now. I don't know if Andy's looked into that, but that is correct. At one time you did need a license.
Okay, Andy?
Yeah, I would like to add that a license is required from the Ministry of Environment to transport garbage. And I think there's approximately 780 pickups per year. And if you do the math, it works out to roughly $40 a pickup. If we were to do it in-house in the summertime, it'd probably be 3 full days by the time you did the loops. You got to pick up 3 times a week when we're busy in the summer, and Terry wouldn't have time to give up 3 days a week to transport the garbage.
When you break it down like that at $40 a dump, that doesn't sound that unreasonable.
Right.
Okay, if we have nothing more to say, let's vote.
Madam Mayor?
Sorry. Go ahead, Victor. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a comment about the legal predicament. In the past, we have chosen not to accept the lowest bid, and we have chosen to, I'm thinking of snowplow contracts, we've chosen to take on some of the routes ourselves. So I don't think that the legal liability is particularly an issue. Would it be possible to maybe defer this decision until we can get some more information? Like, could we explore the possibility of bringing it in-house? And then if we decide that it's just not worth it, then we can go with the J&J proposal.
It depends on how long their quotes are good for. Often there is a time frame. Andy, is that the case?
I'm not sure if there's a time frame specified, but I did talk to J&J, and he needs to know so he can get the MOE license, because he's currently in the process of getting it. And that obviously takes time.
Okay. Brent?
Just a quick question.
Go ahead, Brent.
Sure. Thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question then. When are these contracts effective? Because obviously that has to factor into our mind who and when is someone going to take over. So I'm wondering if you could give us a sense of when the effective date is.
I believe it's April 1st.
Yes, it is April 1st, Andy.
So we don't have a lot of time.
No, not a lot of time.
Okay. Well, we have a motion before us, and I do think we need to consider the legal implications if we don't go forward, and how we could ask for another quote. And by the sounds of it, whoever is going to do this will need to get a license, and they need probably 4 to 6 weeks, or maybe even 8 weeks to process that. So I think we need to make a decision tonight. So the motion before you is to go ahead with JJ at $88,050 for a 3-year contract. So let me see hands and I'll count those in favor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Those opposed. 7, 4, 1 opposed. Motion's carried. It's a tough pill to swallow, but I think we're kind of stuck. All right, next we have Canada Healthy Communities. Moved by Bill and seconded by Tom. Whereas the Canada Healthy Communities Initiative is a $31 million investment from the Government of Canada to transform public spaces in response to COVID-19. And whereas this initiative aims to support local efforts to develop small-scale infrastructure solutions, programming, and services for communities under the following streams. 1, safe and vibrant public spaces. 2, improved mobility options. And 3, digital solutions. And whereas the Manager of Development Services, CBO, is recommending that we apply for this grant to replace the ramps at Arden Hall and Soldiers Memorial Hall. And whereas these ramps are estimated to cost approximately $150,000, as they will be required to be AODA compliant. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council authorize the Manager of Development Services to apply to the Community Foundations of Canada for funding for accessible ramps for Arden Hall and Soldiers Memorial Hall in the amount of $150,000. Any discussion? Bill, and then Nikki.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Andy, are these grants, are they partial? In other words, do we have to put up a portion of the money for if we receive this money? Is it a third, 2/3, or is it 100% grant? Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, they will fund up to 100% of the project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Nikki?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Andy, I took the training for this for my place of employment. And could you explain to me how the ramps tie into being COVID friendly, making their structure? Because I just don't understand. After taking the training, to me, the ramps don't qualify, because we were looking at accessibility project. And after taking the training for the thing, we realized we didn't qualify. So if you could please explain that a bit, I'd appreciate it, please, and thank you.
I was on a webinar last week, and I proposed the projects. They said they would fit. The way I was going to pitch it to them was that the community halls are a large open space, with all the physical distancing required during the pandemic. They're, small groups that need a space to gather in. I think that would fit the COVID-19 part of the stream.
Okay. Okay. Anything else? All those in favor of the motion? Let me see your hands. Motion's carried. Okay. Now we are at Fire and Emergency Services. You're off the hot seat now, Andy. All right, we have a motion moved by Brett and seconded by Sherry. The council received the CFFR activity report as prepared by the acting manager of Fire and Emergency Services / Fire Chief dated February 23rd, 2021. Any discussions or questions on Jamie's report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Next, we have open air burning bylaw, moved by Elwin and seconded by Cindy. Whereas council provided input on the amended open air burn bylaw as prepared by the acting manager of emergency services / fire chief, And whereas staff forwarded a copy of the bylaw to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry for further input to ensure that we are in compliance with the legislation. And whereas the ministry comments and recommendations have been received, which have now been incorporated into the bylaw. Now therefore be it resolved that council receive the open air burn bylaw as prepared and provide further comments to staff. And further that council directs staff to bring the bylaw to the first meeting in March for passage. Discussion. Bill. And then
Through you,
Tom.
Madam Mayor, to Jamie, the open air burning time frame to be 2 hours before sunset and 2 hours before sunrise just does not, to me, make any sense whatsoever, especially in the winter time when people I see a lot of farmers expanding their fields and they're taking down fence rows, like rows of trees along fences and expanding fields. Does this burn bylaw mean that you can't have a brush fire during the winter time in the daytime? To me, it makes no sense. I just wanted to get an explanation as to why these timeframes are put in place. Thank you.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McDonald. I'm going to take that question back to the MNRF bill. That is one that I've received a few questions on from the public as well, is around the time and the explanation of the time. And when we sent their bylaw to them and asked them for their input and their suggestions, they still come back with the same definition of what's under the FFPA. So let me reach out to them and I'll provide an update when we bring it back in March.
Okay, Tom and then Victor.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to comment. I've already asked Jamie before the meeting on a couple things, but anyway, the thing I wanted to comment was I looked at the price now for burning permits for the summer. I think they're more reasonable than what we had before, Jamie. The $10 to me is not unreasonable for a campfire, and I think that's reasonable.
Thanks, Madam.
Okay.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Dewey. We're trying to, along with going to the online burn permit system, we're just trying to make it more administrative friendly for not only the residents, but for staff as well. So
good. That's good.
Okay, Victor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Acting Chief Riddell. And you sort of partially answered one of my questions. They're both about the permitting system. The first one is, what will be the duration of the permit? It used to be April 1st to October 31st. Is this going to be throughout the year? And the second question was about the online permitting system. When is that going to be up and running?
So through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor East. So the online the permit system will switch once it's passed to the full year. It won't just be April 1st to October 31st. The online permit system is up and running, just waiting for this to pass, and we're good to press go and move forward. So we even have, we will be bringing the fireworks bylaw to you as well in the near future, and it will be tied in with the online permit system as well.
Sherry.
Sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, to Jamie. I understand the purpose of the online permits, but Jamie, is there also going to be an opportunity where people can still purchase them? I'm just thinking that there are some people that can't necessarily access it online.
Yep, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Juan. Our office staff will assist with obtaining the permits. People that come into the office that maybe they can't access it at home through their computer system. It's literally less than 5 minutes to process the application, and we can print it off and take the payment here, and they leave with their permit.
So
Perfect.
we will
Thank
do
you
it
very
for
much,
them. We basically will do it for them on the computer.
Yeah, so
Okay.
in the past, they would come into the office and we would handwrite out the permit. Basically now they come in, we take their information, input it into the system and issue them the permit.
Perfect, thank
Okay.
you. I can just think of a few people that don't have internet, so that's
Yeah.
great.
Or don't use a computer
Like, yes,
at all.
Yeah, yeah.
exactly. Thank
Okay,
you.
Bill and then Tom.
Oh, no, through you, Madam Mayor, I was just putting my hand up for one of those people that don't use the computer that much, so. Come on.
Okay, Tom.
Thank you, Worship. Jamie, you just said something there that I was just trying to find it in the bylaw that I don't agree with, but you said that you need to permit for all year in the bylaw, and I was trying to find it there when you were talking, but it was said in there from April 1st to October 31st. And I agree with that. I don't think you really need a permit in the winter.
Through you, Madam Mayor, the reason why we asked for year round for the permit system was for the brush fires so that it's on the permit. So even in the off season, they call a number to activate their burn permit for that day so that the fire service will receive notification that they're burning, so that when they are burning, if we receive a burn complaint, we'll be able to go on to the burn permit system on our dispatch systems, and we can see who has a permit. We can see that the address, and so we're not rolling 4 trucks, lights and sirens for a burn complaint where the person's compliant. So
this is just a change in how we need to do business because the areas are getting more built up.
correct, yes.
Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we're going to vote on the motion. All those in favor? Carried. Okay. We have a motion moved by Nikki and seconded by Tom. Whereas the Ontario Fire College campus has been in operation in Gravenhurst since 1958, and whereas the Ontario Fire College campus is one of the primary sources of certified training for Ontario firefighters, and whereas the Ontario Fire College campus has built a reputation of integrity, credibility, and reliability in providing some of the best training to our fire services within the province of Ontario. And whereas the Ontario Fire College campus has been training and certifying volunteer, part-time, and career firefighters throughout Ontario. And whereas the Fire Marshal is rolling out information on the regional training centers and program availability at this time, and the acting manager of emergency services fire chief believes it's premature to make any recommendations at this time. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council accept this report as information. So this was based on the letter that Bill asked to pull from the package last meeting. Go ahead, Bill.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, to Jamie, I just want to say thank you very much for the information, because the original information we received to asking for support did not give us any of the background information. So I very much appreciate your report. Thank you.
Well, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor McDonald. It's unfortunate, the decision to close the Ontario Fire College, because there is a lot of history there. It's served its purpose very, very well. When I look at other areas that I've been involved with that have gone through the same sort of transformation and allocation of services, I think the way that they're moving will better fit, especially the rural departments. It'll open up more training opportunities for us and make it closer to home and even in-house, where we can bring one instructor to Central Frontenac and run a course where Central Frontenac firefighters, North Frontenac, South Frontenac firefighters can come as well, and we can run a program right in-house. So I see a lot of positives. The OFM is doing a really good job as far as reaching out to the fire chiefs and town hall meetings and explaining the direction and how they're moving forward. And I see a lot of positive. There's still some questions around funding. But I think, like I said in my report, I think it's a little too premature to start sending letters, asking for the reversal. Because deep down, I do support the move to regional training centers, and hopefully in the very near future, Central Frontenac will actually be taking part in a regional training learning contract with one of the RTCs, and having the Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 course right here at Central Frontenac.
Brent?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jamie, just a couple of questions. The local RTC, where is that located? And in your opinion, with regard to the difference between what the RTCs offer now, I assume there's a certain amount of offering locally right now, as opposed to the fire college. Do you get most of the training and the support through the RTCs, or how much of what we do right now we rely on Gravenhurst for?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Cameron. Historically, with Central Frontenac, we've completed training primarily in-house and non-certified. So we have had firefighters that have expressed interest in taking courses at Gravenhurst, which we have sent firefighters in the past to Gravenhurst and completed the programs and received the certifications. I think locally, the RTCs, there's Leeds and Thousand Islands, there's Trenton, I do believe soon to be Kingston. So we have ample opportunity now to take advantage of 3 local RTCs, not only to bring here, but also to go there. It's a lot closer. And that's where I think we'll see the cost savings equal out, versus sending firefighters to Gravenhurst and sending them to an RTC. So I think in our case, that's where we'll see the cost even out, and I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Anything further? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion? Carried.
Have a great evening.
Great. Thank you, Jamie. All right, now we're moving on to tax and finance. And the first thing we've got to do is pay the bills. So I have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Elwin. The council approved the check distribution reports totaling $1,872,352.90 as prepared by the treasurer. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Cindy and seconded by Victor, that council approve the following apportionments of assessment as recommended by Impact for 2020 and 2021 as applicable for the following roll numbers. And there's a whole bunch of them there that were in your package. Any discussion or question on any of them? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. I think my internet is slow because it takes you guys forever to raise your hands. Okay. Update asset management plan. Now, do you want to do the presentation first, Michael, before I read the motion?
I would, yes, Madam Mayor, if you don't mind.
Okay.
First, I'd like to thank council for supporting this because I think it's a valuable initiative that we've taken. There's a lot of information that has come out of it, and John will do an excellent presentation, I'm sure, and then we'll have some questions, no doubt.
So we have John and May with us.
Correct.
Welcome. And we're going to let you take over the screen and you can do your presentation. I'm going to go off video so I can catch all the words.
Okay,
My internet's unstable.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you very much, councillors, for receiving this today. And yeah, I'm the guy with the grey hair, so let me just try and bring up the presentation, but it should be fine.
Do you want me to make you the host so you can access it on your computer, or do you want me to share it? Okay, I'll make
If you
it.
don't mind, that would be fantastic.
Yep, no problem at all.
Okay.
Okay, I just transferred it over.
Okay. That's great. And does that come up okay on the full screen, everybody?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it does.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, well, thanks very much once again. My name is John Murray. I'm the General Manager of Asset Management at PSD. And May is my colleague. She's an asset management consultant at PSD. And yeah, we worked the last 2-3 years with Michael McGovern, actually, who's done a great job bringing your asset management program forward. So the report we supplied is about an 80-page report. And I'm going to try and summarize it in 10 or so slides, but also talk about some of the other work that we've done over the last 2 to 3 years to bring forward the maturity of asset management in Central Frontenac as well. Did my next slide move forward okay, everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great, thank you. So I always like to start talking about asset management in terms of service management, especially in a council chamber. You know, the infrastructure is only there to supply a service to the community, as you know well. The roads and the bridges and the culverts are there to provide a transportation service, which is really the core services of our modern society. And it's the ones that are often taken for granted. You know, people forget when they back their car out of their private property in the morning that they actually enter the public realm. And that road, you know, has a cost, and it must be, you know, kept, you know, up to a good state of repair. And that's a service that should be there forevermore. And then there's the other capital assets, you know, the facilities, recreation centers, libraries, parks, trails, you know, fire services through your fire facilities that bring the quality of life to your community as well. So this report is really about sustainable services for your community. And then the more dry slide, you know, back to the international definition of asset management. It's all about the coordinated activity of a organization or a municipality to realize value from assets. And the value in the public sector really comes in the way of a level of service that we supply to the community. So I just wanted to kind of outline that. And Michael Govern's done a great job providing leadership in Central Frontenac to really coordinate the activities over the last 2 or 3 years to really bring your asset management program forward. I'd like to show that. And only because the Ontario regulation on asset management talks so much about level of service, I wanted to explain that a little bit straight away. So the international standard for level of service is the diagram on the screen. And they say that the level of service of any infrastructure type is balanced by the cost of the program, by the performance of the program in the community, and the amount of risk it carries towards service failure. So in simple terms, councillors, it would be, you know, if the road network is in perfect condition at all times, it's the gold standard, there's probably too high a cost to the community. So maybe that should be lessened, but there's no risk. And the opposite side of that coin is the roads are in terrible condition at all times. There's not enough cost going into the program, and there's very high risk to service delivery. So how does Central Frontenac find the right balance? And we'll talk more about that as we go forward. But I'm going to summarize in this slide some of the work that's been done over the last 2 to 3 years, as Michael had in his council report. So it's going to be difficult. I'm going to skim the surface, but I'm absolutely open to any questions afterwards. So we start off by doing a state of maturity report, and that's where we looked at the practices and processes and data already that you had in Central Frontenac. We compare it to some of the best practices out there. And then through a gap analysis, we come forward with some key recommendations that you should do into the future. And a lot of those gaps have been closed. The next thing, we brought an asset management policy forward through senior staff. It came to this council chamber and it was approved about 2 years ago. And that was the first item that had to be done on the Ontario regulations. So You checked that box and that was complete. We then met with staff internally to talk about how to get good condition data on your infrastructure assets in the field. We supplied condition assessment industry standard protocols and also some key data capture tools that you could use to get that information in the field. The next piece for each infrastructure class, so that would be roads, bridges, facilities, machinery and equipment, etc. We help staff build some risk and criticality models. So that's just saying that which asset, if it failed, would have the biggest risk to sustainable services within your community. And when you rank and rate every asset in a database, it's a really good tool to help you prioritize and optimize budgets going forward, especially with limited funding. The next item we rolled in was our life cycle activity model. So that's really formalizing what public works groups already do, but also looking at how do you optimize your activities in the field. So to explain that, when a road's put in the field, we don't just wait till 30 years later to replace the road. Obviously, during the life of the road, there may be some crack sealing done, there may be an asphalt overlay done, there may be a mill and pave, and ultimately we replace the road sometime into the future. But if you do the right thing to the right asset at the right time, you always save money on your capital budget, and we put some of those models in place. And by the way, all of this information is supplied in this 80-page asset management report that we brought forward. A lot of that good information then rolls up into financial strategy. If we do the right repairs and the right replacements to our asset portfolios at the right time, how much money do we need? And as we project into the future, how much money do we need year upon year? So we'll look at that in some of the slides. And then how does that tie into the level of service that we provide today? So for the first time ever, this asset management plan has some motherhood statements within it for each asset area on level of service, and some high-level key performance indicators on what is your current level of service. But there's more discussion required in this going forward. We'll talk about it in the slides. And then finally, all of that accumulates into the asset management plan. So I had to go through that fairly quick. It was a lot of work, but that's what brought the asset management plan today. The Ontario regulation, what does this mean as far as compliance to the Ontario Regulation 588? That was a very stringent regulation. They were asking for a lot of municipalities. The good news is through Michael McGovern's leadership, I would say you're ahead of about 80 to 90% of the municipalities in Ontario. And, quite a few of them are a lot bigger than yourselves. So you're doing fantastic for a smaller municipality. You complied with the first milestone in the regulation. You've already brought your asset management policy forward. And then they require 3 different flavors of asset management plan from each municipality in Ontario. One is for core municipal infrastructure. In your case, that's roads, bridges, and culverts. And then the secondary report is for all of your other infrastructure assets. So in your case, that's your buildings, machinery, and equipment, vehicles, and land assets. And the good news is the AMP that comes forward today complies with both of these. So you are compliant all the way up to July the 1st, 2023. So far ahead of many other municipalities. Within this asset management plan as required by the province, we've defined a current level of service. You have your asset inventories listed. You have the current performance of your assets within the document. We've defined the life cycle activities you do today and how that will help you maintain your current level of service going forward. And then we've looked at the impacts of growth as well, and I'll go through some of that. The next major milestone it's worth talking about today, and the good news is you have lots of time to get here. July the 1st, 2024, you need one more flavor of asset management plan where you talk about proposed level of service. So, and for this one, they want a 10-year financial strategy that ties into how will you achieve the levels of service you propose. It's a little bit more complicated. I will talk about it as we go through the slides. The last bit on the the regulation from the province. After 2024, your asset management plans must be updated at least once every 5 years. So it doesn't stop then. And also, every municipal council shall conduct an annual review of its asset management progress on or before July the 1st each year. And because there's so much emphasis on asset management, we're finding a lot of municipalities are now bringing on an asset management coordinator or some form of help for staff internally. So I'm just putting that out for food for thought, because it is becoming a bit of a trend. The province are asking for a lot. And then finally, the asset management policy and plan should be posted to the municipal website. So that brings us forward to the plan. Once again, it's an 80-page document with a lot of detail. And I tried to highlight some of the key messages in about 10 slides. The first thing is, it's always a snapshot in time, a plan. This particular asset management plan was based on year-end 2019 information, because year-end 2020 is not ready yet, and the best information you had at that time. It also relates to capital expenditures for infrastructure services today and going forward into the future. It doesn't relate to operations and maintenance. Sometimes there's confusion there. This is all about capital expenditures. So we'll show what is the current state of municipal infrastructure today, what good process improvements have already been brought forward in Central Frontenac, and some recommendations on some additional work that remains to be done, and what is the municipality's financial capacity to meet long-term capital requirements. So we got some important slides on that. So cutting to the first slide directly from the report, it's quite interesting when you see this. In today's replacement dollars, as of 2019, Central Frontenac has a combined infrastructure portfolio of 98 million. So it's a big number, and it's an easy one to remember. If you just remember 100 million, that's pretty much it. And I always like to say that the cost of your infrastructure is the biggest investment you have ever made as a community. There's nothing bigger, but it's how do you maintain that as you go forward. Some highlights from the graph. You can see the road network is half of that total. And if you add in the bridges, culverts, and road network together as the transportation service, it's 3/4 of that total. And then you have, buildings and facilities is significant at 13 million, and the other smaller asset classes to follow. I particularly like these metrics. So if you said to a member of the public, we own 98 million worth of asset, they may just roll their eyes. We sound like a big company on the stock market, but the key message here is that the average household in Central Frontenac has a share of $23,500 worth of infrastructure within their own community. So that's a key message. It kind of hits home. And, if you're today about, picking up garbage services, people understand that municipalities plow the streets, but it's taken for granted. They forget that all of these infrastructure services are adding up to be 23,000 worth of, a share in their own community. A note on the bottom box is these asset management plans used to be run on historical costs, and it was the accounting protocols. And it really didn't show you true projections going forward. So this will show you the difference. The historical cost of your asset portfolio from an accounting perspective is only 48 million. But the 98 million represents the true cost of replacement today, what it would cost you through your capital programs, and just the simple cost of construction today. So a much better figure to look at. So I just wanted to highlight that on the screen as well. If we look at the condition of the infrastructure in the field today, that would be this graph. And once again, within the report, we break this down in far more detail for each asset class. But this shows you at a high level for roads, bridges, buildings, vehicles, machinery and equipment, stormwater and land improvements. And you're looking at the percentage that each asset class has that's in very poor, fair, good, and very good condition, just to show you the bars going across. And at the bottom, we talk about the source of data that this came from. So that's important, because for the road network and for the bridges and the culverts, that actually came from engineering studies where they collected condition data in the field. So you had a road needs study and the Ontario Structural Inspection Manual reports also done by an engineer. So really good data that we can rely on, and we know that's accurate. For the facilities, 74% of the facilities were assessed by internal staff, but the other 25, we have no data, and the other assets, we don't have condition data. So we've kind of come up with a proxy condition based on the age of the asset. So when you look at the first 3 bars, it's pretty accurate. After that, it's a little bit loose. And that's something you may want to collect more condition data on into the future to get a better handle. The road network, it's not too bad a story. I mean, 75% of your road network is fair, good, or very good. But, you know, there's some challenges. You're getting more very poor and poor, which may grow over time. Bridges and culverts, a high-risk asset. It's good to see, in really good shape. And then there's definitely a concern on your buildings. You know, there's a good percentage, about 60%, that are in very poor condition. And that brings us forward. Once we quantify the inventories, the condition of items, the life cycle needs, so that's the repairs coming forward, and the end of life replacements, we can then start to look at what is the forecasted capital requirement of each asset class. And then this graph collectively brings it all together for the entire asset portfolio. So there's a graph like this for each asset type within the report. This is the entire portfolio. To explain the graph, on this axis, we're looking at millions of dollars worth of expenditure. Along the bottom, we're looking at 5 years worth of expenditure going into the future for each bar. And then each bar is colored by the expenditures coming forward for each of the asset classes, as shown on the legend on the side. We then look at the peaks and the valleys of all of the expenditures. And then we quantify that on an average basis, on an average year, you require $4.8 million if you were to look after all of the needs, all of the repairs, all of the replacements at the right time, all of the time. So that's how we come up with that number. And then that takes us to this slide. So this then quantifies, are you in a infrastructure deficit position? Now, the answer is that Central Frontenac is, but I want to premise this slide because it's an important message. You are not alone in this. This is, every single municipality in Ontario has an infrastructure deficit today. So that's 444 municipalities in Ontario. Every single municipality in Canada and every single municipality across the Western world has some type of infrastructure deficit. And it's because our modern societies, we had this massive build of infrastructure back in the day, and there's a lot of replacements and repairs required today, and we simply don't have the budget envelopes to match the need. So that's not an issue of this particular council. It's taken decades for most municipalities to get there. But the key thing is we need to look at this information and understand there may be a number of years that we chip away at it so we can get to some sustainable funding level again into the future. So the report shows that the annual capital requirement that came from the last graph for Central Frontenac is $4.8 million. Funding currently available is $2.8 million. So that leaves us with an annual capital deficit of $1.9 million. And that's the gap that needs to be closed. So it's somewhat sobering. There's a lot of information in the financial strategy in the report that leads up to these key messages. That would require a total tax change of 24.2%, which is, it's unfeasible, it's unpalatable. So the report then recommends how could we incrementally bring that in over a 10-year basis. And that would require a 1.5% increase to the tax levy just for capital spending year upon year for the next 10 years, just to clarify that. Now, the key thing is the province, when it comes to grants and transfers, they only allow you to add sustainable grants into the financial strategy of an asset management plan. So to put that in simple terms, for Central Frontenac, that would be your gas tax grants, and your OSIF grants. Any other one-time grants we're not allowed to put in. So this could be less than 1.5, depending on the number of other grants that become available, of course, over the years. There was talk earlier about the Canada Healthy Spaces grant, for instance, of one of many, many grants, as you know. And then the other thing that could lower the ask to close the gap is, I'm sorry about this coming up at the bottom of the screen, is how you look at the question of this desired level of service as you go forward. So let me talk about that on the next slide. It's a bit of a complicated concept, but in basic terms, and once again, back to this international standard on asset management, they say level of service is measured, and I know I'm repeating it somewhat, by the performance of the assets in the field. So for roads, that could be the condition of the road, how fast you get from A to B. For your facilities, it would also be the condition of the facilities, but also the functionality. Do they meet the needs of the community today? For instance, do you have the right AODA standards in place, et cetera, et cetera? And then do you put the right cost into the program to meet the performance specifications? And because of that, what is the risk to not meeting the desired level of service? And if you get a good balance, you can spin the top endlessly with your level of service. And that's what we're trying to get towards. So once again, as you move towards this next A&P, it's a bit more complicated. They're asking every municipality in Ontario to say, what do we think our proposed level of service is? So that would require you to look at performance against costing envelopes, against risk management, and find a balance for you. And it may be that you can't repair all of your roads all the time, but if your road network is 70% or 65% good all of the time, that works well for Central Frontenac. Just one example of many. So I wanted to bring that forward because it's a challenging thing to tackle, and it's the next thing on the Ontario regulation. To finish the presentation, some key asset management program recommendations within the plan. And once again, Central Frontenac doing a great job. The fact that you're so far ahead of the recommendation, you've done so many things to date, I think is a really strong position and good story for yourselves. But there's still some continuous refinement of the asset inventory data, especially on the smaller asset classes. You want to continue to implement portfolio-wide condition assessments. So you have the road needs study for the roads, you have the Ontario structure inspections for the bridges, but you want to maintain your bridges every 2 years, and you probably want to maintain condition inspections for your road network once every 4 or 5 years, so you have current data on hand. And then some of those other asset classes without condition data, you probably want to look into that, because you only get a really good handle on your infrastructure deficit when you truly understand the condition of all of the assets you own. I often say maybe you forego a capital project, smaller one year, and spend the money instead collecting good condition data so you have the big picture view. Because the 2024 asset management plan expects you to attach a 10-year financial strategy to your proposed level of service, you probably over the next few years want to start to expand your capital planning horizon beyond the 1 year approval and start to get towards a 5 or a 10-year planning horizon, named projects, and understanding the budget envelopes coming forward is one of the key recommendations. And then start to look at this evaluation of level of service. It's quantified in the report for the first time. There's some key performance indicators against it, but staff are really starting to collect the data. So for the next few years, they should come forward to council chamber, maybe a report on that, and that will help your discussions as you move towards 2024 on this proposed level of service that you need to find for your roads, for your bridges, for your machinery equipment, for your facilities, for your vehicles and your land assets. And the last slide, it's a little bit of a reiteration, but the key next steps: review and refine your asset inventory with consultation with internal departments and stakeholders. So it's not just about finance. You need all the line departments because they have the best data in each area to help the accuracy and the competence of the data. And then the big preparation for 2024, the discussion on the proposed levels of service, And as you get closer, you might have good information to say, to reach this level of performance will cost us this much. Maybe now we could go out to the public with a town hall and have an intelligent conversation where you're not just asking what does the public want, but it's more, we can promote this scenario or this scenario, what are you willing to pay for? And we've seen some communities do that with some good information. And then lastly, just continuous improvements and regular review of the good implementation you've already brought forward. And with that, thank you very much. And maybe I'll stop sharing and I'll open it to questions for myself or May. Thank you.
Okay, Bill, go ahead.
Yes, John, I really was hoping that you'd stop praising Michael sooner. We will have to owe him more money here. So to throw us out of our continuous, how much do you anticipate COVID will have effect on the level of services offered for municipalities, and how much are they going to have to invest in places like their buildings, for example, to accommodate any new regulations or expectations of the public when they start to use our public facilities?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, in the short term, it's and you talked about it earlier in the council session. It's increasing your costs for infrastructure management, isn't it? In the long term, though, it's hard to say. You know, we'll go back to more of a normal scenario. You know, maybe the end of this year. And if anything, I think it makes the infrastructure planning aspect for the future more important than ever, to get a good grip of what's required today, so that you can be more flexible to react to these types of things that could happen at any time. I mean, you know, if we were back in January of last year, we didn't know COVID was coming, for instance. That may be the best answer I have. It's an increase in the short term, but in the long term, I think it's just, it puts more emphasis on this type of planning.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Excellent presentation. Asset management is not an easy process tool to understand, but I think we've heard about it enough. Michael does teach us as we go through things, and he's a good teacher. It's making more sense to myself and I think to council as we go forward. And it's perfect timing going into budget talks on Friday.
Adam, would that be
thank
teaching
you.
or preaching?
Well, a bit of both, Michael. Victor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just sort of a side note, AMO offers an asset management plan workshop online for counselors. So I took that, and so that sort of helped me to understand this presentation. It made it a little easier to understand. I recommend it. It takes a little over an hour, but it really gives you the foundation of what this is all about.
Excellent. Okay, good. If there aren't any more comments or questions, oh, Bill, go ahead.
Yes, John. When it comes to level of service, municipalities, for example, on the roads, adopt a level of service in regard to all of their individual roads, and they are classified. And of course, as that classification goes forward, that dictates the level of service for that particular road. And I'm wondering, how much do you feel that public pressure will come to bear on municipal councils in regard to changing levels of service for various areas as that happens? Because we know that when there's 50 cottages built on a private road, they want the municipalities to take it over. Just give me your quick opinion on that situation.
And through you, Madam Mayor, sorry for not saying that the first time. Yeah, that's a great question. And so the minimum maintenance standards that we have in Ontario that you referred to really dictate your level of service for operations and maintenance.
Yes.
But they definitely come into the fold here when we're looking at the level of service for the transportation network. What they don't address as much is obviously the capital requirement. And are you taking care of, you know, your repairs, your replacements going forward? So that's in addition. So that would get tied to some financial requirements that you can start to gauge through metrics going forward on what level of service can you get to. And then you may ultimately say there's a certain condition index that we can supply with a feasible monetary envelope that works for Central Frontenac. And then back to the public, I think asset management gives you good ammunition as councillors, because you're always caught in between the public and what staff can achieve. To say that, I know you ask, and I'll be frank, the public are going to ask for a lot, but now we have some good metrics to say we can have a really meaningful conversation where with this monetary envelope, I can give you this level of service. It may be roads are 70% good all the time, not 100% good. Now let's talk about that. And this would cost you this much as a taxpayer. Which one are you willing to pay for? So that's the way I see it. And it takes some time to get there, but asset management brings those good metrics to the table. I hope I answered that okay, the way you were asking.
That's fine. Yeah.
Right, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Okay. No other
Just wanted to
comments. I have a motion that I'll read. Go ahead, Michael.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to thank John and May in front of council for all the hard work that's done over the last 3 years. May and I have had multiple conversations, and John obviously did an excellent presentation with some high-level compliments. So thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I have a motion moved by Sherry and seconded by Brent that council accept the presentation of Public Sector Digest PSD of our updated asset management plan and approve the attached update asset management plan that meets all the requirements of Ontario Reg 588-17 before the July 1st, 2021 deadline for core assets and the July 1st, 2023 deadline for all assets. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Hands up. Okay, motion's carried. Again, thank you very much, John and May. And I'm sure we will touch base with you at some point in the future.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, now we have administration again, moved by Bill and seconded by Cindy. Whereas the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disability Act requires the municipality to have all documents on its website accessible as of January 1st, 2021. And whereas an audit completed by our website host eSolutions has found numerous non-compliance issues preventing us from complying with this requirement. And whereas staff has indicated to the ministry that the township is working on a plan to bring the website into compliance, and the ministry has extended our deadline to do so. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Council for the Township of Central Frontenac acknowledge the importance of providing accessible services to all residents and supports the proposed accessibility plan so that it can continue meeting the needs of all of its residents. Discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Okay. Now we are at committee reports and minutes. There aren't any. Delegations. We have with us tonight Gord Brown, who is going to talk to us about the Kennebec Wilderness Trails. Gord, do you want to put your video on? Welcome.
Well, I got my audio on.
Okay, we can hear you.
My video cannot start because the host stopped it.
Oh, Cindy. Do you want to go ahead, Gord, without video, and Cindy will get it on for you?
There we go. Okay.
There you are. Okay.
I'm just going to share my screen so that everybody can see the slide deck. Bear with me here.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I've got I'm just gonna change my slide, my screen. Hang on just a second. Stop. I've got the PowerPoint up on 3 screens and I picked the wrong one.
Okay.
Oh. And my computer is frozen, which is not helpful at all.
Okay. Well,
It's thinking.
it's that time of the day when the internet
Yeah.
sort of gets bogged down.
Slide though, correct? It's just,
Gord, do you want to just go ahead, and if Cindy can get it up, that's fine.
Let me say, first of all, before I start, that I spent 36 years in the facilities business, so I understand how important asset management is. And I feel embarrassed to even be here talking to you today about something as mundane as a Kennebec Wilderness Trails when you have things like asset management to deal with. Nonetheless, Your Worship, councillors and staff of the Township of Central Frontenac, thank you for the opportunity to meet with you virtually today and to provide an update on our Kennebec Wilderness Trails and the identification of some future needs. There we are.
Good.
Special thanks to Councillor Dewey and Ms. Kathy McMunn and Ms. Cindy Deachman for their support and assistance in making this happen. At this time, I'd also like to thank Kathy and Michael McGovern for arranging to fund the last 2 printings of our trail maps. Finally, a big thank you to Willis DeLine and the Olden Roads crew for keeping our parking lots at Highway 7 and Nordic Road plowed this winter. This has been particularly appreciated since this is the first winter that we are keeping our snowshoe trails open. This is my first presentation on Zoom, and Cindy's going to help me through this, so please bear with me. Next slide.
are you seeing the slideshow that you're like, I'm not sure what's, okay, perfect.
The Kennebec Wilderness Trails were officially opened on the 5th of October 2018, and in the ensuing 2.5 years, we've seen a steady growth in trail traffic and use. Keeping the trails open this winter for snowshoeing has been easier than anticipated because of the high level of interest in the regular trail traffic. Next. To better orient everyone, this is Kennebec Shores waterfront community. A total of 250 acres with 24 lots. Subsequently, another 70 acres and 3 large lots were added to the development. All 27 lots have been sold, with 10 homes either built or under construction at this time. And 19 of the 27 lots are waterfront on Kennebec Lake. Our focus today is on 156 acres of parkland within the development, which is now the Kennebec Wilderness Trails. Next slide. We have 2 of these large trailhead signs, one at each of the 2 parking lots. The main lot is at 28786 Highway 7, and the other is on Nordic Road within the Kennebec Shores waterfront community. If you focus on the trail map, you'll see that there are 5 color-coded trails: white, orange, red, yellow, and blue. Nordic Road runs east-west along the top of the map, and there are 4 trail entrances that originate from the road. Next slide, please. There are 2 yellow trail entrances from the main lot off Highway 7. This is the north lot. Next slide. The gates are padlocked and allow for maintenance vehicles to access some of the trail network. Next slide, please. The KWT has been promoted through the Township website, Frontenac News, the last 2 printings of the Frontenac Visitor Guide. We also promote through our KWT Facebook page and also the Kennebec Lake Association Facebook. Copies of trail maps are provided to local camps, parks, and the Tourist Information Center. Many hikers discover our trails through Google Maps, OntarioNatureTrails.com, and the All Trails app. Users of these apps upload photos to each of these sites and log comments on their hiking experiences. This is a photo that a hiker uploaded to Google Maps, and it's the Mr. Baker's abandoned bulldozer, which is in the valley just off the Yellow Trail. Next slide, please. In June 2019, we were able to attract the interest of the geocaching community. These 3 lads from Ottawa arrived with a duffel bag full of items and containers and spent one full day preparing, planting, and documenting 13 caches along the trail system. One of those caches is a puzzle cache. Information from the logs of 6 of the remaining 12 caches must be retrieved in order to decipher the GPS coordinates for the puzzle cache. Next slide, please. Known as the world's largest treasure hunt, each geocache has a unique name and GPS coordinates and is advertised on the International Geocaching website. This is one of our caches called Big Maple. It's an old ammunition box. Inside is a large container, and inside it is a smaller bottle. That small bottle holds the log, which needs to be signed by the cacher. Next slide. This is Trailblazer and a photo that he posted. He was here on the 23rd of January 2021 and was the first geocacher to visit the KWT in snowshoes. The cache is called Wild Orchids and is quite unique. Next slide. This is our mulching crew. The photo was posted on the geocaching website by a couple with the name Kayakers 2 on the 23rd of September. The lady was 73 years old. She had had heart surgery the previous December and walked with a cane, and her husband was 75. They spent 6 hours on the trails that day and found all the caches. And they also posted some wonderful comments about their encounter with us, the trails, and the geocaches. This feature was named Lion King Rock by the Snyder family and is a unique geological formation. We hope will soon be uploaded to the geocaching website as a earth cache. That'll make a total of 14 caches on the trails. Brian McKinstry, local geologist and volunteer, provided the fieldwork and write-up for this cache. He is also the volunteer who brought his Kubota tractor to load our trailers and trucks during one of our trail mulching days last fall. Next slide. We went through 1,000 trail maps in the first 18-month period of trail activity, and another 500 were printed in January 2021. Trail map usage is the only real metric we have for measuring trail traffic. Considering that an estimated 15% of trail users don't use the maps or return them after use, and estimating that we feel that we've had over 3,000 hikers during the 18-month period. Next slide, please. Trail map itself is printed in color, and the flip side is in black and white. On the back side, there's a short write-up that you see there, and then next slide, and a larger map of the area that pinpoints the KWT location. The last two printings of 500 copies each have been carried out for us by Frontenac News. Next slide. I'd now like to talk a little bit about trail maintenance. These are our three main maintenance volunteers, Greg, Gabe, and Al. The picnic table was donated by Sharpa Lake Home Hardware and is installed at the top of the former ski hill on the Yellow Trail. Next slide. Grass cutting is by far the most labor-intensive work in terms of trail maintenance. This is Al operating the large brush cutter that we were able to borrow from Kennebec Lake cottager Cliff Anderson. Next slide. Well, it's much bigger and more powerful than we require for the trails. We appreciated his trust and generosity in loaning it to us. We borrowed the mower twice in 2018 and twice in 2019. Next slide, please. The grass and weeds grow like crazy from April through August, especially on the Yellow Trail. 80% of that trail is open to the sun, and much of the valley area is wet all summer. Next slide. In 2020, we lost access to the brush mower and had to do all the trail cutting with grass trimmers and a 20-inch push mower. Next slide. As I indicated in my brief, our volunteers provide their own equipment: grass trimmers, mower, chainsaws, ATVs, trucks, and trailers, plus the fuel and the oil and maintenance to operate them. Next slide. We've spent considerable time removing rocks to facilitate mowing and placed many cubic yards of mulch or wood chips to reduce the grass cutting. However, mowing and cutting still remains our main effort. Not cutting grass is not an option, especially because of the fear of tick exposure. Next slide. This is an aerial image from 2008. Earlier, I showed you the two farm gates at the trail entrances off the Highway 7 parking lot. We have a third gate directly off Highway 7 that provides us vehicle access to the center of Baker Valley and also to the Blue Trail. Years ago, this was the road to the former cross-country ski building. If you look closely, you can see the road and the former building highlighted by blue dots. We use this entrance to haul mulch and equipment into the valley. And while it's not a trail, we need to cut the grass and weeds on the access road once or twice yearly. The Yellow Trail is 2.3 kilometers long and is 80% heavy grass and weeds. The Blue Trail is 2.4 kilometers in length and is conducive to cutting with a mower. Because of the terrain, having a self-propelled walk-behind mower dedicated to the KWT would greatly reduce the grass cutting efforts of our volunteers. Next slide. This is our mulching crew with a large trailer load of wood chips in the valley near where the former ski chalet was located. From here, the mulch was moved in smaller trailers with ATVs. Next slide. Here are members of our mulching crew moving the wood chips by wheelbarrow to the final location on the White Trail. Next slide. Here are 3 photographs that show the final mulching of 3 of the 4 trail entrances off Nordic Road. This is the White Trail, the west entrance. Next slide. This is the White Trail, the east entrance. Next slide. And this is the Yellow Trail. Next slide, please. Now a few words on our rest areas. A previous slide showed the picnic table on the Yellow Trail and the ski hill. This is the Jim Duffy Memorial Bench installed on the Red Trail overlooking Mallard Pond. Jim was a retired RCMP officer and musician. He was a longstanding Arden resident in Big Clear Lake, on Big Clear Lake, and a staunch supporter of the community and Friends of Arden. The bench was donated by the Duffy family. It was designed and built by welding students at Sydenham High School. And the bench back features 2 pipers and the first few bars of the RCMP Regimental March. Next slide. We have 2 rustic pine benches. This one is located at the Red and White Trail intersection. Next slide. And this one is at the intersection of the White and Yellow Trail. We have 2 smaller benches on the Yellow Trail, but nothing on the longest trail, the Blue Trail, nor on the Orange at this time. A need for 4 picnic tables has been identified for the Blue and Orange trails. The next few slides are a selection of several areas of the trail network that were taken last fall. Next slide. This is the Yellow Trail going down from the ski hill. Next slide. This is the White Trail. Next slide. This is the White Trail and one of our footbridges. Next slide. Another footbridge on the White Trail. This is what we call Zigzag Bridge on the Yellow Trail. And these are 4 young hikers on the White Trail. Next slide, please. I showed you this slide a bit earlier. This is the Yellow Trail where it crosses the valley floor. It was heavily mulched in the spring of 2020. Next slide. And here's what it looked like in the fall. Well, the mulching greatly reduces the grass cutting. It doesn't completely eliminate it, and the grass and weeds eventually creep in. Final slide. So in summary, these are the items we've identified as needs for the Kennebec Wilderness Trails for 2021. We've received a few comments about the need for an outhouse or a portable toilet. And while we recognize the need, we're not overly excited about taking on more work and responsibility for stocking, maintaining, and cleaning an outhouse. That concludes my comments, and we look forward to your input and consideration. Thank you for the opportunity again to meet with you today, and I'll be happy to respond to any questions.
Okay, thank you, Gord. Certainly you've done a lot of work. The volunteer crew has been busy. Okay, any questions or comments for Gord? Bill?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Gord, a couple of questions. I think you already hit the one main concern I had in the porta potty was with the COVID and the cleaning. It may be add a lot of extra work if you actually set some of those up. But a couple of other questions. I'm wondering if you have any warnings on your trails in regard to tick invasion when you're going through all that grass. And if there are any concerns by the hikers. And the last question I would have is the group, do you have any fundraising efforts? In other words, do you have any places along that trail where you might put up a donation box for those who are really enjoying the trail that might make a small donation to the maintenance? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor. First of all, on the ticks, to Councillor McDonald, on the ticks, we do mention it on the sign and also in some of our correspondence, but as long as we keep the grass cut, we feel that the risk is much reduced. None of our maintenance people have received any ticks, and we're all working in the grass when we're doing the cutting. They're there for sure, and we've had quite a few reports of animals, the dogs getting them, but not a lot of reports of people. Sorry, what was the last question?
Have you any effort ongoing in receiving donations?
Yeah, we had some discussion of that. We had seen a hiking area actually in Newfoundland where they had one of those boxes. Actually, they had a couple of boxes. They have to be pretty substantially made because they're prone to vandalism and people trying to steal the money. But we haven't actually had any further discussions on the idea of trying to do fundraising. We do a lot of scrounging. We beg Hydro One and some of the tree experts around here, and have actually received a lot of donated wood chips and mulch. We borrow a lot of things from people, but we haven't taken on any fundraising at all.
Any other questions or comments? Victor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just first of all, I just want to say to Gord, that looks fantastic. I have not been on those trails, but it really wants me to go out and have a look. Now, comment about the ask here and about fundraising. Council before has talked about, specifically with the rec committees, about setting up a 50-50 model where the rec committees would fundraise and the council would match funding. And perhaps that's, I don't know if we have implemented that as actual policy, but perhaps that's something that we should consider in this case as well.
We're certainly going into budget talk, so it could be on the table at that point. Go ahead, Gord.
Well, we are part of the Kennebec Recreation Committee. We report to the Recreation Committee at every meeting that's been held. Obviously, there hasn't been anything held for the last year. We've never talked directly with the Rec Committee about fundraising for the trails, and so far we haven't received any specific support from the Rec Committee in terms of financial support. But that's something that could be pursued for sure.
Okay. I have a question about a porta potty. In the old days, it was an outhouse. Is that a possibility on different spots in the trails?
Yeah, I mean, I think an outhouse would be probably a lot easier to look after than a porta potty. I did get some pricing on porta potty, and it's not a viable option for something like our trails. It's just way too expensive for what we get.
Plus, then you still have to get them dumped, and that certainly you can't get vehicles way into the woods to dump them. But I do know that you can do an application for an outhouse with the septic people, whatever their name is now. And that may be something to consider. But then again, to build the building is the cost of plywood, and it all adds up.
Yeah.
But the maintenance is always a question. Tom.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Gord, for your presentation. I think that Gord's request is reasonable. And I think that's probably something that we should be discussing at our next budget discussions. And that probably would be coming through the Rec Committee since they're closely attached to the Rec Committee in Arden. But the other thing I'd asked Gord earlier when Gord and I have been communicating back and forth is that we over the next year or couple of years, I think we need to get some idea of how many people from the various areas within our municipality and outside that are actually accessing this wilderness trail. So And I'm just putting it out there that maybe in the next printing of the map or the next whatever we print to get some feedback from the public, that maybe we could ask them to give us for the area that they're from and how many were in their group. I think that's important information going forward, Gord, so that when we come talking about dollars and cents at budget time, we would know how many people are actually we're drawing into our area to access this area.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Dewey, we can certainly look at that. It's we may have to seek some advice on just how to do that, but there are some of the keen hikers do return their trail maps to the map dispenser. We have one at each of the 2 trailheads, but there's people that don't go near the trailhead signs. They go straight to the trails. So how we would capture them, we'd have to do some work on that to figure
maybe
that out.
Gord, just a comment sheet, a simple tear off sheet that could be, well, they have to access it through one of the heads, right? Through to get into the area. So maybe a little, some kind of a little box or something there, just asking for comments, similar to what you have at a restaurant, how is the service, that sort of thing. And maybe just ask those basic questions of where they're from and how did they enjoy their trip on the trail or their hike on the trail. But anyway, I'm just throwing that out there.
And one way of certainly doing that is maybe, Gord, is maybe having them send, because a lot of people would have certainly their cell phones or, to even send emails. And if you have to, come through the township email, or if Kennebec, the Kennebec Rec Committee has an email, as to hear from people as to their experience on the trail.
There's no question that a lot of the people that use the trails are high tech. The geocachers, they don't use a trail map, they use their phones and their GPS. A lot of the hikers that find us through Google Maps or All Trails, they're using their phones for everything. They take a photograph of the trail map on the sign and take that with them, or they upload it from one of the sites.
So maybe providing them with an email address.
It's interesting because a lot of them provide comments on each of those websites, and they also upload photographs. Yeah. The geocachers have over 60 photographs they've uploaded, along with comments on not only the trails, but also on the geocaches themselves. So we have some of that information. We don't know where they're from or that type of thing, but there's certainly a lot of information already there on some of those, in some aspects.
Right.
Okay. I have a motion to read, and then, sorry, Cindy, and then Nikki.
Yeah, and also to Michael, he'll speak in regards to the budget.
Oh, okay. So Cindy, you first.
Okay, I want to thank Gord and all the volunteers, because I know it's a lot of work that you've put into your area there. That's my first comment. Gord, is the outhouse still on Nordic Road that used to be there, or is it gone now?
Oh, that belonged to Mark Schneider. Mm-hmm. At one point in time, he said he was going to leave it for us, but he moved to another development, and so he took it with him. Oh, that's true. There are 2 outhouses at the Arden Rink. There was only one, and then it was filled up, so another one was brought in. So there might be something there, but.
So my other question is, do you have a Facebook page for the trails at all, or?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good. A lot of people leave their comments there and their pictures. So
we have 118 followers on that Facebook page.
Nice. And what about an app? I don't know if the township's ever thought of this either, of having like a township app and adding something like the trail system into that app so people could get the maps. That's just a little food for thought.
Mm-hmm.
It is available on the township website to download, but I don't know how many people will actually do that.
Right.
Okay.
And hopefully when the rec committee, when we start to meet again, we can talk about the trails and see what we can do. Yeah. So thank you, Gord.
Good. Okay, Nikki.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And Thank you, Gordon. It was a lovely presentation. I just wanted to follow up with Councillor McDonald's question in regards to the cleaning with COVID. We just went through it last week with Second Depot campground. And with your, just for information for everybody, with your outhouses, they have a minimum of twice a day they have to be cleaned, but they would recommend more, but they'll settle for twice a day. So it might eat up a lot of your volunteers' time having to go and clean those porta potties to the COVID standards that the government's recommending.
That would be tough.
Yeah, it would be. Okay. Is there
Michael.
any other? Oh, Michael? There you are.
I wasn't sure. I didn't want to interrupt Gord because it was a presentation, and I think we all appreciate all the work that he's done and the crew there.
Yes, and
I know
also
my-
too, I can also mention Michael and I did when it first opened or first went there. We went on the trail. So Victor, you can go.
My kids enjoyed it as well, but they didn't do the whole trail. Yeah, budget, Madam Mayor. I understand that there's some complications with the morning on March 2nd. We were initially going to meet from 9 till 4. I'm assuming with the rest of council that it's still okay to meet in the afternoon.
Is that right, everybody? That was at 1 o'clock, we said?
So
Yes.
Friday,
Yeah.
February 26th at 1:30. And then
Yes.
we were going to meet March 2nd from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m., I thought.
But the Madam Mayor has the communal servicing. You have the communal from 10:30 till 12:30. So I mean,
Yes.
there's an option we can meet in the afternoon.
Yeah, I'm available after 12:30.
But you want to have lunch, I assume. So would 1:30 be a good start time?
Or even 1 o'clock. It doesn't take me long to have a quick sandwich.
That's on March the 2nd, Michael?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, I've got it in my work.
Okay.
At
When
1
you
o'clock,
say-
not 9.
1, okay.
Okay, good.
So February 26th at 1:30 in the afternoon, Friday, and Tuesday, March 2nd at 1 p.m.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay, we're all good with that?
thank you, everyone.
Okay, thanks, Michael. All right, now
You're
I'm going to
welcome.
read the motion moved by Tom and seconded by Victor that council received the presentation from Mr. Gord Brown on behalf of the Kennebec Wilderness Trails for information, and further that council consider the financial requests as part of its budget deliberations. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you very much, Gord.
Thanks,
Thank
Gord.
you.
Okay, we have correspondence and communications. Moved by Elwin and seconded by Brent that council receive for information the following correspondence 1 to 10. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Now we are at public meetings. Motion moved by Tom and seconded by Bill. The council received input from the public meeting and the accompanying report prepared by the deputy clerk. And further, the council approved the recommendation to stop up, close, and convey to the applicants, Jennifer Butter and Stephen Riddell, that part of the abandoned section, Ardock Road designated as Part 10, 13R 2171, being part of PIN 36217-0031 LT as a lot addition to their property. And that staff proceed to obtain an opinion of value to determine purchase price and a bylaw passed at a future meeting once the purchase price has been established. Any discussion or questions on the motion?
And Madam Mayor, if I may just ask, there is a member of the public here. Just if you do wish to speak to this matter, if you could just hit the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you wish to speak to this, otherwise we can just continue on. It doesn't matter. There's no need to speak. It's only if you wish to add anything or give us any comments or have any questions. So I don't see any raised hands. So I don't know if council has any questions or concerns.
Okay. Okay. Any questions or comments? Seeing none. All those in favor? Carried.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. Now, bylaws and agreements, we don't have any. Is there any notice of motions?
None.
Is there any giving of notice of motions?
No.
Any new or other business?
No.
Okay, closed session. I have a motion moved by Sherry, seconded by Cindy, that council move into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) to discuss matters relating to 1, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board S239(2)E Fire Department. And 2, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, section 239(2)C. Any discussions? All those in favor? Carried. Now Cindy sent us the closed session link. Does everyone have it?
Yeah.
And then Cindy, you will give us the link to get back into this, or we use the other link that we came in on?
We'll just use the same meeting link, and I'll just keep anyone who logs in the waiting room until we're done closed session. So there's just the one meeting link you need to come into.
Okay.
Okay, so I will now end this meeting and open up the other meeting so people can log in.